Egg and chips, gin and tonic, posh and Becks. Some things are better in twos. For over 40 years, some of Coronation Street's most popular characters have come with a sidekick, a double act.
I think soaps are about relationships, and of course the best form of a relationship is a double act.
You can't play by yourself, you need somebody to bounce off of on the comedy side, and on the dramatic side you need somebody to either stitch up, stab in the back or sleep with.
Laurel and Hardy used to pack him into the cinemas, and a good double act, which is usually a comedy act, isn't it, does the same for a TV show.
Double acts are, in a way, the epitome of soaps.
You murderess!
Yes, and you're a con man.
It's nice to see a friendly face.
Are you all right, Roy?
No.
How can I go in my jaw all frozen?
Well, it's up to you. You've got, what, 6 hours to get defrosted? Our fridge doesn't take that long.
Your badge of office. I now proclaim you Mr. Norman Watts, assistant manager, trainee.
My favourite double act, without a doubt, are Jack and Vera.
Fizz and Kirk.
Rita and Mavis.
Alec and Bet.
Roy and Hayley.
Stan and Hilda.
Stan and Hilda. The Ogdens. For 20 years, their antics at number 13 made them the nation's favourite double act.
Stan and Hilda were every man and every woman. They were like the working class, never-do-wells, little people who I think most of the audience were like, they identified with.
And actually, I'm sure there's a little bit of Stan and Hilda in you know, most people that you know. There's a bit of that sort of a relationship.
Well, I watched the Ogdens for an awful lot of years, and I laughed at them and cried with them. They were brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
I suppose so.
Oh, I suppose so, I suppose so. It's the trouble with you, you're too damn suppository. Now get out there and insert yourself.
When I first met him, I thought, well, he's a decent-looking chap, you know, this should work, because he was a big man and I was only 8 stone 4 wet through, so it looked rather good between the big man and the little woman, you know, it was a sort of handicap thing in reverse.
What's this rubbish stop doing in my living room?
Oh, don't shout, love. It's supposed to loveliness of your features.
The rapport seemed to happen right away, even from the dry runs. You know, it just seemed to fit somehow.
Stan and Hilda brought a sort of quality to their roles. It was Hilda's deep affection for Stan. Even though he was a wastrel, he drank and gambled away such money as he earned. She was always struggling to make ends meet. He defeated all her romantic hopes. He would always deflate any turn towards an expression of love. But you could tell that she loved him. And in his own inarticulate way, he loved her.
Everybody thinks that the actors are exactly like the characters they're playing. And in our case, this was not true, because I was nothing like Hilda. Bernard was the same. He was a completely different character. He'd written a number of very good poems about his feelings during the war, during that time. You know, driving munitions lorries across North Africa and being bombed and all the rest of it, being shelled and all the rest of it. And they were very, very good. I remember reading them. He showed them to me once. He said, I don't show these to everybody, but you can read them. So he was a very well-read man, you know, nothing like Stan at all.
We'll talk about something else.
All right, Chuck. I like a nice talk.
Yeah.
I'd much rather stop here with you and have a real talk. Intimate like. A proper conversation. What are you doing?
Putting telly on.
Oh, no wonder they say it's a dying art.
It was just as well Jean and Bernard were not like their on-screen characters. They spent most of the time rowing.
The row scenes always developed. And it's like you had to orchestrate them, really, because you can't just spend a whole scene shouting at each other. It doesn't work.
I'm not touchy. Many a man will clip you around the ear hole for that crack, I'll tell him.
Oh, would they?
Yeah, and that thing, too. A good mind to throw in the dustbins and waste some money.
You arm that frock and I'll take that poker and separate your ears.
I don't care. I want my tea on that table and I want it now.
Well, you know where it is, in the kitchen. I've had mine. I'm fed up running round skivvying for you, Stanley Ogden, and I tell you this, if I have to go on that second honeymoon on my own, it's divorce, next stop.
We made them come. We did it deliberately, because to take the edge off the fact that they were rowing, because they didn't row really seriously. It was a sort of flash in the pan stuff most of the time.
I remember one time when Hilda was convinced Stan was having an affair because he used to go out on his rounds and was away for a long, long time. So she followed him, and it was great just watching her skulking around. And she actually realised he was talking to an old woman who just needed a bit of company.
Oh, hello.
I mean, look at the bloke. He's not exactly God's gift to women. I don't think she had anything to worry about.
Stan wasn't the only one with antisocial habits.
I used to frighten the life out of me when we first started because I have a habit of burping at the last minute when I'm not expecting it. And we used to be in the studio waiting to do a take on a scene. And the first time it happens, Bernard nearly shot off his feet because the floor manager said, right, quiet studio, countdown, 5, 4. And I went, and Bernard's eyebrows shot up into his hair. And then they said, cue, and we went straight into the scene with no problems whatsoever. And Bonnie said, are you going to do that again next time? I said, well, I never know when it's going to happen, Bon. So he got quite used to it after that.
Stan and Hilda might have been Mr. and Mrs. Ordinary. Roy and Hayley Cropper are anything but.
And it was done so gentle, so tastefully. I mean, fancy saying a sex change to Jack. I mean, Jack thinks Vera's a sex change.
Double acts on the street have come in all shapes and sizes, but the couple that really caught the headlines was Roy and Hayley. David Neilson joined the soap first, landing the part of Roy Cropper through a lucky break.
A friend of mine was writing for the show at the time, and there were 6 episodes that this character was in, and he had written one of the episodes. This guy wears too many man-made fibres, stands too close, he's generally hopeless. Ah, Neilson could do that. So for the first, he rang the casting department and said, have you cast this character? And they said, well, we're seeing people in the morning, and this is like tea time. And they suggested me, and they said, oh, good idea. So I got a phone call that evening to get to Manchester the next morning, and I was stuck on the end of the interviews. Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened. If my friend had thought of it like a day later, it wouldn't have happened. And what I remember from that was I got there a bit early, and there were people of all shapes and sizes and ages, and they didn't really know, obviously there wasn't a particular type, except they were all character actors. And it so happens I was doing the Open University at the time, and I was studying like 16th century religious Europe, and I had all these obscure books, Martin Luther stuff, and a flask in my bag, because I was too mean to buy. I was travelled up from Bristol on the train. I was too mean to go to the buffet. I was broke. So I went into this interview, and the whole interview took place about the contents of my bag. I just walked in, and this director said, that's one of those Stanley flasks, isn't it? I said, oh yeah, unbreak. So the flask came out. What's that? And the books came out, and they cast me on the spot.
David first appeared in Coronation Street in 1995.
He was there to freak Deirdre out. He was Norman Bates. I suppose that was the description.
Only me. I just wondered if you needed anything from the chemist.
What kind of thing?
A lemon? Or the greengrocer?
Is that what you banged on my door for, to ask me if I want a lemon?
I thought you might be feeling under the weather.
Every character in this show, that after it's been there for a while, has to have a partner, it seems to me, or a relationship. And I think Hayley came into it, and she was going to be part of a series of hopeless relationships.
Hello, Roy.
Oh, hello.
They have the same worldview, which is about treating people with respect and tolerance of other people and kindness and morality, a strong moral core.
Oh, sorry, is this not a good... I'll come back there, Cyril.
No, please don't go.
Well, are you sure? Because you...
Please, it's nice to see a friendly face.
Are you all right, Roy?
No.
When I first heard about it, his first relationship was going to be with a transsexual. I was told this in a bar in Chorlton by somebody who worked for Emmerdale. This is the way it works, this business. Said, oh, what about your storyline? What storyline? You're going to have this relationship with a transsexual. And apparently I went grey.
My dad went grey, like David went grey, yeah. I think he was very worried, but no, it was absolutely brilliant for me. I was really chuffed that they felt I was up to it and that I could do it, and it was a really big challenge for me. And also it's just such a great sort of challenge to play such a controversial figure in such a popular programme.
What? I'm a transsexual. I mean, I'm not a female by birth, Roy, but by choice.
I think like most fans who saw Roy and Hayley's beautiful courtship, you're just thinking there is someone for everyone in this life.
What we found was that people believed in them and felt for them, and what it actually did was it brought the whole issue of transsexuality out into the open, and people's grandmas were discussing it who may never have discussed it before because they cared about that character.
I would describe their courtship as exactly that, a courtship.
Yeah, I think they went around it in much the same way as perhaps my mum and dad would have done. I like to believe they could tell you different.
It was all a bit sort of messy, and, you know, you'd imagine them together and elbows in the ears, you know, you know what I mean? It's sort of like you do everything wrong and together, faffing around. I remember him trying to get a coat on when, you know, when they were leaving for the restaurant. So it's all very awkward, too many elbows.
It's been a wonderful evening, Roy. Thank you for everything.
Very gentle, lots of dates. Roy in his special courting outfit. You know that he's in a romantic mood when he wears that outfit. There's a Coronation Street secret for you.
There were such odd characters, but instantly you could see the chemistry between them, that there's no one else for either of those people apart from each other, so everybody cheered them on.
I think a lot of it is down to the fondness that the audience had for Roy beforehand. And I don't think anyone ever thought of him possibly having a romance. So when Hayley came along, people really latched onto that. It was like, yeah, make it all right for him. So when they got together, the combination of the two was something that people really responded to.
You watch the way it was done, and it was done with such style, so fine.
So you won't be staying?
Well, that depends on whether there's anything to stop for.
Yes.
Or anybody to stop for.
Well, best have a look what there's left to see then.
The straight things are wonderful and moving, but their comedy is just... it's so real, and that's to me what comedy's about. I loved all the stuff in Amsterdam. I really liked that, because, I mean, you know, you've got Roy abroad, for one thing. He'd never been abroad.
Well, I've always found everything you've had to say about trams very interesting.
I'm worried that I use interesting facts to avoid saying what I should be saying.
Like what?
Like, where are we going?
Well, I would like to squeeze Anne Frank's house in if we could.
No, Roy. I mean, where are we going? Us as people.
Yes.
See, I know where you're going. Today, back to Weatherfield. But where am I going?
Well...
yes. Oh, no. Are you all right?
No, I'm sorry.
I'm
sorry.
It's wet.
No, I'm sorry.
It's all right, Laura.
Gems, absolute gems. What a duo they are.
I think they're quite strong, Roy and Hayley, and I think they do... he gives her what she doesn't have, and... I mean, he stamps on all her fun. That's why his responsibility is to stop her having fun. He's terrified that she's going to start, you know, because she's a party animal and she's a bit harebrained, and he's a bit, you know, he's very, very cautious.
But they're a very ordinary couple, you know. I mean, Hayley gets so irritated by him. I mean, there's not a self-respecting woman who wouldn't sort of get irritated by Roy at time to time. He's such a procrastinator. So, you know, I think it's you know, it's not based, it's not all... I think people see us as very sort of soppy, romantic couple who are all very gooey-eyed about each other, but actually Hayley, you know, spends a lot of time shouting at him.
He's made me do it 3 times.
Yes, well, after you told her to redo it, I still wasn't happy with her technique.
So he made me do it again, which to my mind was completely unnecessary.
It's not right, Hayley. You've got to be prepared to learn from your mistakes.
I have not made any mistakes.
Right, well, let's see, shall we? Would you like to actually finish the job, Hayley?
Yes. Let's see if you can get that in the right place without a great deal of fuss.
Oh, yeah, right. I think I can manage that.
But Street Minx Tracy Preston is in the mood for making mischief, and it's Roy and Hayley who could come a cropper as a result.
The whole issue with Tracy and Roy and Hayley is really interesting because, of course, none of us really know what went on that night with Roy and Tracy, and we've got the whole issue now of the pregnancy and you know, the whole questions that raises. And what it actually is about, again, is about those characters. It's about Tracy and her hatred of people who are in settled relationships, which is what Roy and Hayley were. They were invincible, Roy and Hayley against the world after everything they'd been through. And what this is doing is shaking the foundations of that relationship, because it brings the whole issue of the fact that Tracy is a real woman, that Hayley doesn't see herself as a real woman, and that Roy went off with a real woman, and the whole issue of the baby that they could never have. So it is interesting to see the way that we've had the twists and turns, the fact that Roy and Hayley, you know, looked as though they could break up. Now they're looking as though they could get stronger, but there's many twists and turns in that storyline right into next year, so it'll be fascinating to see how that turns out.
They look after each other. They're a really strong unit because both of them would have been bullied in any street, even Weatherfield, without each other to sort of prop each other up, which is why Tracy Barlow must die.
Is Tracy upstairs?
I think she is, yes.
You think she is? Were you really going to sneak off without saying goodbye, you naughty boy?
I'm sorry, I didn't want to disturb you.
And I thought you were a gentleman, Roy Cropper.
I'm sorry, I've got to go. Goodbye.
If bad things happen to Roy Cropper, I generally enjoy it. So it doesn't actually affect me personally.
At the time of filming, we're friends again. But Hayley's saying no more than that. I'm here to support you as a friend, but nothing more. But I'm sure it won't take long before she falls back into his manly arms.
While the public are still rooting for Roy and Hayley, in 1987 they were up in arms over the pairing of Bet Lynch and Alec Gilroy.
Let's go and paint the town, eh? What do you say?
Tonight?
Oh, it's got to be. I can't wait till tomorrow. Come on, say yes.
Yes. Whoops, was that me saying that?
Do you know, I think it was.
Viewers had camped overnight, pitched tents, and there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. And as I got out of the car to go into the church, they all started to chant, "Don't do it, don't do it, don't do it." And I thought, this isn't for bloody real, is it?
People didn't like them as a married couple because she was devious and I don't know. I loved Alec. I thought he was great. Of course, he sacked me a couple of times, but we don't go into that.
You know, Alec's not an attractive man, and Bet usually went for the lookers rather than the little fat bald blokes.
She was a battered blonde, and he was a sort of over-the-hill con artist, and it seemed to be a good idea, and it was.
They were very odd, weren't they? They really were the odd couple.
He never told her he loved her. I don't think Alec would have known what the word love actually meant, unless he was talking about his wallet.
Would Sir like to try it on Madam's finger?
What for?
Well, to see if it suits Madam's hand.
Wouldn't have to suit Madam's hand. It's not for Madam.
I see. It's for your wife.
We're buying on behalf of a friend. But what we thought was, if we was to buy two, you might be in the market for a nice little discount. Didn't we, dear?
What we want two for?
Well, one for Audrey and one for your very own, much cherished and hard-working partner.
You can forget that and all.
It was always good to watch Roy Barraclough and Julie Goodyear because they struck sparks off each other.
Well, Bet and Alec was so entertaining because the repartee between the two of them was great. Hers was very cynical and he was very quick-witted.
Bet was having a miscarriage. And I thought, my God, they actually sleep together. Because I wasn't sure until then, in my own mind, that they ever did. And that gave some more depth and more insight into them as a couple, really.
Alec, how is she?
She's all right.
Oh, Alec, I am sorry.
Me too, love.
Corrie's strength has always been doing the comedy and the pathos and the tragedy together with the same characters. And double acts always do that. You know, one minute they're laughing together, the next minute they're crying together, much like real life. And that's why the writing is always spot on. It's not just a two-dimensional comedy, knockabout routine with Jack and Vera or somebody like that. You can cry with them as well.
I think probably one of my favourite scenes with Roy, which was never to be repeated because of the length of time it took, was a bed scene. Now, whoever decided that that should have happened was either very sick or slightly retarded perhaps, or whatever. But that bed scene, I tell you, took about half a day in studio to record. But it was pretty damned outrageous, I have to tell you, and should have been a very moving, sad scene, because it was actually the scene when Bet was telling him in bed that she decided not to go to Southampton. Alec?
I told you I'm shot.
I don't want to go. And God forgive Mr. Barrowclough, but at 5 seconds, the studio went silent, and of course, there was the slight sound of zzz, which was obviously a vibrator underneath the sheets. Now, need I say any more? I know what we said, and I know what I agreed to. But I don't want to leave here. But as I say in his defence, you know, I had popped a little, tiny little bottle of Love Stud oil on his bedside table, safe in the knowledge that he would spot it at some stage. And he did have other things underneath those sheets as well. They never wrote another bed scene. Very wise.
After 12 years on the street, Roy Barrowclough had had enough of playing Alec, and this double act came to an end.
When it's moving on time, it's moving on time. Whatever the reason any actor or actress might have, and there's only you really can make that decision.
It was a great disappointment when Roy Barrowclough left the show, and took something away from Bet's character, I think.
It couldn't possibly last, no. Oh no, it's a shame, but it couldn't.
Indeed, all things must pass. But how does everyone cope when the curtains come down on a great double act?
Walk carefully, Tiger.
If double acts are the lifeblood of soaps, what does happen when one bows out?
Sometimes a character has to be written out because they've died, sometimes because the actor who plays the character wants to move on, sometimes because the people producing and writing the show think that character has reached the end of a useful life. And in each case, you try and devise an exit that suits the people and suits the drama.
There's always a period of mourning for fans when double acts come for an end, particularly if the real life actor like Bernard Ewins has died. You know he's dead, you mourn for the character and the person.
I think you do have to be rather sensitive about writing out a character when the actor who plays the character has died. And you would certainly never sort of use the death of an actor to sort of set up a stunt in which you play some murder or car crash and have the artist, or the character I should say, killed off in that respect. No, you've got to handle it out of respect.
Well, when of course we did the scenes about Stan's death, it was actually, he died in June, I think, and we didn't do his death until about October. So we'd all rather got over the worst part by then, and we had permission from the family to write in his death and his funeral. So the actual scene was really all acting.
The actor Bernard Ewins, who played Stan when he died in real life, and then of course it was written in that Stan had died, and I was, with every other viewer, watching that scene where Hilda was alone in her home. Amazing.
Hilda brings home his pathetic little parcel of belongings from the hospital and unwraps them and gets to the specs. Terrific moment.
Amazing stuff when she unwrapped that parcel. I cried with everybody else.
Yeah, of course, when Stan and Hilda's partnership ended, you had Jack and Vera who kind of slipped neatly into their slot.
Don't tell me. No, ever press me.
No, no. What we do is we get another sample book and we do all the walls in them, like a patchwork effect, like. Where you going?
Upstairs.
For the scream!
Liz Dawn and Bill Tarmy need no introductions. They've played one of the street's longest-running double acts. Battle Axe Vera and Henpecked Jack have been at it since 1979.
When they are playing together, they are better than when one of them is playing with anybody else. There's something more than just two people. There's an extra dimension. You get 1 + 1 = 3.
They're very believable. They had the fights and they were more vicious. It was more public somehow. Because Vera, unbelievably, is more gobby than Hilda.
Well, I think Hilda were long-suffering, you know, compared to Stan. But Jack and Vera, they're both long-suffering, you know. It's a wonder they haven't killed each other at times. It's been unbelievable.
Jack loves Vera. He just doesn't like the woman. Because every time he tries to do something a little bit on the naughty side, she thwarts him. She's 3 moves ahead of him.
Jack and Vera met on the waltzers at a fairground. Can you imagine? I must have been on the waltzer and he was working there.
I thought to myself, that is a class act, I thought. And I was right. Because there was not many women around like our Vera in them days.
Still aren't, love.
1 in a million, my Vera.
Aye. So we're going round and round, and we've been going round and round ever since.
I think Jack has the upper hand. But then again, I'm thinking from Jack's side in their relationship. But if you look at it, Vera has. He just wished he had. So.
Yeah, Bill and I, we established a good relationship right from the start.
You never know what she's going to do. She's one of the funniest women I've ever met, and the only one that doesn't know it is her.
The artists have a certain chemistry together, and that comes through in their relationship. They like each other. I think they amuse each other. And it's that personal affection which I think shines through all their work as artists.
I think it was because we came through on the cabaret side. You know, we weren't trained actors, so we had a lot in common.
She doesn't do things for laughs, but we are in hysterics laughing at her because she's a very funny girl.
Absolute favourite Jack and Vera story has to be when Vera baked the pigeon pie and pretended they were Jack's pigeons. I loved the look on his face when he realised.
Enjoying your pie, are you?
Hi. What is it?
Well, it's an ancient recipe. Something I thought you'd be partial to.
Rabbit. Pheasant.
Pigeon. I can remember when Nigel first came, you know, that plays Terry.
They came from a variety background.
Nigel was from RADA, you see.
And they had a different way of working. They left notes all over the place and I couldn't handle this.
He, I suppose, in all innocence, was expecting to an actor and an actress. No, what he got was me and Liz. And every now and again there was that many words and I wasn't that experienced, that every now and again I would put a note on something.
I had a line in the sugar basin and Jack had a line on a cigarette packet.
Also kept getting told off for moving any item of
furniture or props, you know, in case there was some notes, you know, secreted there.
And of course, if Terry had to come in, sit down, pour yourself some cornflakes, I would say, hey, wait, just put that back there.
Of course, he picked the sugar basin, and I went, oh!
Not there, no, that way. Why, there's a note on it.
And I picked his cigarette. We're all looking at it. And he couldn't believe it. He nearly fell off the chair. He went, what's this?
And we all covered for each other at certain times.
God bless him, how he put up with me, I don't know.
It's whatever gets you through, because sometimes you can have a lot of dialogue and it might just be a word or a line.
Two people I really enjoy working with.
Now it's everything with me. I'd have it written on the walls if I could.
Jack and Vera have had a tempestuous relationship, but fortunately Bill Tarmy is made of strong stuff.
Bill don't mind being hit.
I don't mind being hit. Is that? Yeah.
If he had to fall, he'd know how to fall.
She's got to push Jack. And I said, don't worry about it, kid.
You just push me. I'll be all right.
What I didn't realise, there was metal studs in the back of this bloody thing. And as I went back, my head hit the metal stud.
And his head vibrated. And I thought, oh, I've killed him.
And I actually thought I was going to go out. You know, there's slight nauseous and...
Now, love, now! Stop saying now, love! You'd help me if you were a man instead of a rabbit in trousers!
And he went, oh, that hurt.
And she's, hey, kid, you all right?
I hope it's a long time before we have to look back on Jack and Vera. I hope they go on forever. But it's a wonderful act, And I think we want to go with them all the way, as long as they're game.
I think if anything happened to Jack, Vera would... Well, I don't think she could cope, and I don't think he could. I know he's always pretended to be... Well, he has been a womaniser, but I think when it came to it, he would have never left Vera, you know. And there's a lot of men like that. I just think the lucky that they've got each other. Rita Sullivan said, I'm a lucky woman, and I am.
And I'm a lucky man, Vera.
She's not a lucky woman. I've had trifles last longer than some of her marriages. And they haven't got a bad life, because they're really happy, as long as they can pay the rent or whatever, and go for a drink in Rovers and have friends around them. Well, you know, I don't think they're very ambitious. I think that's what's nice about them. They've not really changed.
There ain't a lady living in this land as I'd swap for my dear old Dutch.
Now, not all double acts are romantically linked. Some of them work together. One of the funniest took us out of the street and into better buys.
Well, what's the problem? She won't strip off, Norman. Eh? No. She categorically refuses to wear her bathing costume to pick the winning ticket in tomorrow's Grand Trolley Dash.
Well, it's a bit nippy in here with the air conditioning.
Nippy? I'm not asking her to roll around in the Antarctic, you know.
Curly and Reg at Better Buys was pure comedy, and also it made a supermarket interesting, which is no mean feat.
Reg was Napoleon without the millions of men, and Curly was the man who got sent over the top in these doomed schemes that Reg thought were wonderful ideas.
I think they hated each other underneath it all. I think they were very jealous of each other. Reg was jealous of Curly's hair. Curly was jealous of Reg's power.
Curly thought he should have had Reg's job, and Reg just lorded it over him completely.
And actually, if they'd both had a bit more power, they would have invaded each other's countries.
We had seen Ken Morley play on television in one of David Croft's comedy series and one or two other things, and we knew he had a good comedy style.
I was working in London at the time for the BBC, and living in South London. There was a supermarket there, or two, and they both had managers who were quite characters, you know. One was a bit haughty-taughty with it, who used to wander around, a big tall man, like a modern Himmler, with assistants following by, and would simply point out this and that, you know, and off he went. I thought, oh, what a wonderful character. So I wasn't given any brief when I came here. I mean, I was asked to do the part, and I turned up one Sunday and went into this supermarket, a real supermarket in town, which we used, and met Kevin Kennedy, who I didn't know at all, and he was playing the assistant manager. No rehearsals, and off we went, you see. But I just imposed this view that I had about this supermarket guy. And we did the first scene, which we rehearsed just once, and everybody, all the crew and everybody, burst out laughing because it was so funny. And we instantly both realised that this was, you know, very close to the truth.
See, in the supermarket, display is the king. And temptation, queen. Absolutely. Do you know, I think you're going to like it here. In fact, I think you'll manage very well, if you'll excuse the pun. Right, follow me and do as I do.
We would do all 3 episodes in one day, which was a lot of work for us, but it had to be completed in that day because the supermarket was only available on the Sunday. So the pressure was on us to, you know, to deliver it, and this pressure sort of forced us into a sort of very fierce relationship.
I think Curly was driven to nasty things. I mean, he's a man of integrity, but by sheer impotent rage. Because Reg always had him under the thumb. He just was nasty back.
What have you got there? It's a book of raffle tickets, although it's not a full book, there's just one missing. And funnily enough, the one that's missing is the one that won the trolley dash for Mrs. Fairclough.
Where did he get that from?
I found it in your desk, just before Mr. Scott turned up from head office to investigate certain allegations that the trolley dash was fixed. I thought it was wiser to remove it.
No, Luke, no.
And, you know, ever since then, I've had this feeling that what I did was wrong. I've been quite troubled by it. Maybe it should have found its way into Mr. Scott's hands. And after what you've just said, it doesn't make it any easier, does it?
What I've just said?
Yes, we've got to put personal considerations aside for the wider interest of better buys.
Kevin Kennedy and Ken Morley became a double act off-screen as well as on.
Kevin and I were in the green room, were waiting to do a scene at one point, and this had gone on forever. And we decided to do for the rest of the cast scenes from the Kama Sutra. So as we were on the floor of the green room, doing, I think, position 59, much to the appreciation of the other actors who began to throw coins to us, Kevin was playing the part of Romeo and I was Juliet. And just as we got to the frenzied climax of this, the door opened with the managing director of Granada Television bringing in a series of American executives set with the words, "And this is where the actors entertain themselves." To see this disgraceful scene. So I think that sort of sums up the relationship we had, really.
The relationship between Reg and Kevin was always hopeful because Kevin had shown that he could play comedy. He had a wonderful, almost double act relationship with one of his early girlfriends called Kimberly Taylor, who was rather respectable and certainly nobody's dream of passion, although Curly was deeply attached to her. And Curly was always good in that sort of relationship. He'd done it with other women, he'd done it with other people in his life, either he worked for or lodged with. So it was always clear that Curly could play comedy, and he was a fine, more than a foil for Reg. It was an act. It wasn't comic and stooge. It was a good double act.
One of my favourites was when Reg decided he was going to get a wig, so he asked Curly to go with him.
What do you think? You can't tell it's not my own, can you? I mean, you know I've got something, but if you didn't know, you couldn't tell, could you?
No, I don't know. Maybe if I didn't have my glasses on.
So anyway, what do I look like? Now, be honest.
To give someone that much ammunition, I don't know what Reg was thinking of.
Very manly. Yeah, manly. Very rugged.
Because it was so funny, everybody wanted a bit more, so you got more and more work, which is great. But after 5 years, you finish, you burn out. So as I said, I was like, you know, eyeballs hanging down here, and I thought, oh, I'll have to get off this because. And then somebody said, the current producer said, I think we're going to deal with more serious themes, you know. And I thought, great, this is it. The comedy is going to be played down now. So I put on my parachute, I opened the door, and I jumped, and I did it just at the right time, I thought.
Coming up, 2's company, 3's a plot line. So what happens when a double act gets company?
I mean, she'd love you, you know. Well, any mother would, wouldn't they?
Double trouble, 2 of a kind. Double acts mean 2 people, yes? Well, not always. Sometimes there's room for 3 in a bed.
If you bring a third character into a double act, it shows you the double act possibly united for once instead of divided, it throws a new chemical into the test tube, and the result you get might be an explosion or it might change colour, but it does give you interesting results.
The chemistry between Jack and Vera has always been explosive. Throw in an extra character and stand well back.
That third party in the Jack and Vera equation was played by their son Terry for a long while.
It was very hard to come into that family setup because they worked very hard in the previous 3 or 4 years at establishing their characters, and they had become eventually a big hit, and they, at the moment of my arrival, as characters, were flying.
What do you think, Terry?
Well, I think we ought to take the money and put it down on an house.
Trust you to side with your flaming mother.
And I don't want to live round here, though. It's grotty round it. Look at this flaming pub. It's like a flipping geriatric ward.
Hey, there's a lot of youngs coming here, love. Hey, and there's some lovely girls across at factory. I mean, it is unusual in here today.
Yeah, it's flipping diabolical.
Then later, the third party in the Duckworth household was Curly, who came as a lodger.
He lives in a world of his own, you know.
You know what you want to do? You want to get her on, ironing the wrinkles out of boiled ham, then she can bring some of her work home, eh?
Oh, nicking stuff. DPP every time.
DPP?
Dismissal, prosecution, publicity. It's automatic. It's not even up to the local manager. It's not even up to the manager brackets trainee, brackets probationary, brackets your mate.
Look, when you finish speech, you're fine. We can get to work. Look at the time. Come on, stay.
Ta-ra.
Most recently, Tyrone has taken up the role of Gooseberry.
If you bring a third party in like Tyrone, it does give you a nice variation and sets up subtler conflicts between Jack and Vera, as well as Jack and the third party and Vera and the third party.
Morning.
Morning, son. Where's Maria?
Oh, she's just upstairs using the bag.
Right.
Oh. Did you sleep all right?
Yeah, like a log. As soon as me head hit that pillow, I was out like a light. Nothing was waking me up. Didn't know how until the alarm went off.
Couldn't have had much room, that pair of you, in that little bed.
Vera, you're burning your bacon.
I'm not.
Well, you're overdoing summits.
And Tyrone and Jack became a double act in their own right.
Shush it!
So it is.
Take it off, then.
I mean, I better had, hadn't I? I mean, I don't want to ruin the shirt. He's one of our Vera's favourites. The fact that I can't stand the flaming thing is neither here nor there.
Jack, what are you doing?
Oh, dear.
You did that on purpose.
No, I did that because I'm a clumsy oaf, which tells them never let men near the ironing. Big mistake.
Ah. The talent of the writing team and the production team is that they can create a great double act, say, you know, sort of Janice and Les Battersby, and then by bringing someone else into it, split that up and end up creating a different double act, like Les and Kirk.
Depending on the type of character, when their partner disappears, they've got to take a new direction. So that's an opportunity for writers, for instance, with Les Battersby, who was the person you'd boo at in the street because he was such a loudmouth, layabout git. But when Janice actually left him and he completely went to pieces, you started to have some more sympathy for him.
Everybody's telling me I should get on with my life. But how can I? I'm surrounded by you in the house. I can't sleep in our bed no more because you were there with him. And the worst of it is, I know it's all my fault. And
I didn't think they'd ever split Les and Janice up. But as I say, with the Battersbys, you can put them in any situation, it works.
I wasn't really surprised they'd become such good friends because just with the way that the two characters are, I think they're very similar. So when, as I say, when they moved in together, I just knew that they just hit it all straight away.
have you got a girlfriend then?
Yeah. Well, not right now, no.
Ah, playing the field.
Oh yeah, I am, yeah.
Me and all.
I'm sure Kirk and Les have got some massive storylines to come, but the one where they pretended to be gay for the council officer was just, you know, it was pure comedy. It was Corrie at its best.
And I think he sat Kirk down in the cafe and said, we've got to make them believe that we're a couple. And Kirk said, a couple of what? And I think we thought, this'll do. And we've been building on it ever since.
So I was having problems getting Andy to react. But when the woman come in from the council, Andy sat there, and we just went, Yes, I believe you. Yeah, oh yeah, we're a couple. I put my arm around him and he flinched.
He's not my tenant. No. He's my partner.
Andy's so not into that sort of stuff that we had such a laugh doing it.
Let me get this straight. You're saying that you and Mr. Sutherland are cohabiting as a same-sex relationship?
That's right, yeah.
We're very much in love.
And we were all trying to hold it in. And we did. We got to the end. That was... And Andy just stood up to me and said, I'm going to smack you when I get you out of this one. You are in trouble. And I just started laughing.
And the production team decided to make the mix even richer.
The writers' meeting was trying to think what to do with Norris for a little while. Somebody said, put him in with Les and Kurt, that'll teach him. And it was something as simple as that, and it certainly did.
7 veg.
Good, is it? You're a slice of gadget.
Well, it was until I bent a blade on me butternut squash. It'll have to go back.
Hey, what's this? Cucumber with chicken?
It's courgettes.
Tastes like slimy notes.
No, you'll ruin the delicate flavour.
You mean delicate flavour as in no flavour?
Emily was very partial to my courgette.
As the actress said to the bishop.
Hey, the Emily bishop.
Norris is a brilliant comedy creation. Started off making Emily's life hell.
Different smiles convey different things, don't they? I mean, well, how about a sort of, welcome, hi, showtimer?
Well, I think it's just a little over the top.
And now is the bane of Rita's life.
I mean, you say to me, shall I have my hair done? I say, why bother? It never looks any different. Save your money. Does that make me a financial advisor or no?
No, just rude.
Well, I think she's been very foolish dabbling in such things at her time of life.
I think double acts are an essential part of the Corrie tradition. They've always been very strong. The only difference now is they don't last as long because characters tend to come and go. But that's quite nice, like ball bearings, like whizzing off together and forming and, separating and coming together in new formations and that. So I still think in the future it'll be an essential ingredient.
So how does that future look for double acts on Coronation Street?
Bright. If you can find them, if 2 actors can do it, the future is very bright for them and for the show. Always will be.
I think the future of double acts is assured on Coronation Street. I think they will go on, they will continue, and they will continue to capture the public's imagination. They will continue to be on the front covers of magazines, and there'll be many, many more, many that we haven't even met yet, and I'm sure it'll be very exciting to see them blossom on screen.